Hello everyone, welcome into this week's episode of Smart Money Sundays. Hope this finds you well and excited for yet another week ahead in the markets. Finally have a full 5-day trading week. Obviously we've been having those bank holidays lately, which somewhat messes up the rhythm. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and start off on our favorite pair, being Euro USD. All right, so this one, again, the higher time frame bias is still the same, right? We had our old weekly low here and price traded down into it and did not run through it. We traded higher, traded back down, creating that somewhat retail double bottom pattern, right? So we're engineering more liquidity here to be ultimately run out with a liquidity purge type of sell to buy, okay? And so I would naturally expect a firm run out of this liquidity. And given the nature of this massive downtrend we've been seeing, I believe that will be the impetus for a higher time frame push then back up to the upside. Okay, but until then, we should naturally continue to look to sell this thing down into our weekly pool of liquidity. All right, so let's hop on down to the lower time frames. Now the markets are somewhat tricky, and they have been for the last couple of weeks, just kind of in this rangy, choppy phase. And we've had these POIs that we've been talking about on this series for a while, and price just doesn't want to tap exactly into them, right? We had the run higher, traded lower. Okay, run higher through the high, but didn't tap into our initial POI, this being our secondary POI, which we actually do prefer. But we're just running the high, dipping back lower, but what are we doing? We're failing to take out the lows here, right? So this, to me, and I was looking at this kind of area, this candlestick here last week for our members, but given the fact that we haven't run out the lows and broken structure yet to the downside, I'm relatively hesitant for this level here. I would expect maybe another potential run higher into our initial POI, if not our preferred POI at 106.80. Okay, that being the candlestick here that ran out our descending trendline liquidity. Okay, nice supply right here. Okay, so that is obviously our preferential candlestick. Getting back up in there, that's a nice premium as well. Looks like a potential 78.6 retracement, and so we'd like to see that premium and get a nice swing to the downside. Okay, I just don't necessarily trust this given the nature of these higher lows here. Okay, so that is kind of what I'm looking at here on EU. If we get that run higher this week into that initial 8-hour POI and then the break of structure, then absolutely let's take it on the pullback and sell it into equal lows, right? But even if we do trade into this level, okay, I really want to see some type of break of structure. Otherwise, we could simply continue to stair step up into our overall POI for continuations. Make sense? And just to kind of give you some perspective, this is the 8-hour candlestick. That is our initial point of interest for reactions. Okay? GBPUSD. Okay, another one that I believe will obviously follow suit most of the time with EURJPY, in that we would naturally expect another leg to the downside because EU has those equal lows. Okay, and so for me, I would like to see GU run up into this old low here, this old low where we ran out liquidity here, triggered those premature sell stops, ran higher, ran the highs, and then traded back down lower. All right, so this is our institutionally sponsored move, and I'd like to see if we can dig back up into that. Okay, potentially a little higher, and then run lower again. Okay, and so I'm looking at this old low. That's the first POI. And the secondary is going to be 1 hour up close right here. Okay. So I believe the liquidity above this initial impulsive high is going to be run. Okay. And that will free up enough liquidity for us with mitigation to continue for another leg as we expect on EU. All right, so that is GBPUSD. Let's take a look at USDCAD. Again, as we're expecting more short-term kind of runs higher on EU and GU, naturally we should be looking at potential short-term runs lower on USDCAD. All right, and this is one I've already kind of mapped out. We have high, higher, low, creating higher highs and higher lows here. And we did have this demand, okay? This structural point produced this new high. Price traded into that demand, traded away from it. However, we failed to create a higher high, right? So we would have wanted to see this higher high from this level. But we didn't. We traded higher, had the reaction, and then traded lower, breaking the structure. Right? Breaking the structure, breaking the structure. Okay, creating new bearish structure on this time frame. Right, so naturally this demand failed and now flips to supply. Right, so I'd like to see us trade back up into this area, this nice little 1 hour doji candlestick for another leg lower. Take it into that negative 27. Okay, obviously through the liquidity resting beneath those lows right there. Okay, so that's a little short-term setup, short-term play coming into this week on USDCAD. Would really like to see this thing, mitigate London, New York tomorrow morning, and get that initial swing lower to start the week, right? And that would provide us that swing higher on EU and GU. Okay. Now NZDUSD is slightly different. This one is somewhat tricky. I'm still looking at trading this thing, taking this thing down into this weekly level of demand, okay, coming in at 6150. Okay, you can see the inefficiency here, right? We haven't tapped into that yet, okay, but that would still fall in line with overall XXXUSD continuations to the downside for another leg, so that we can take price into this inefficiency here. Okay, and so like I said, this one's a little trickier because we're expecting some runs higher on the EU and GU type pairs, but really on this one, I don't see much that we need to grab to the upside. We had our 12-hour candlestick we talked about weeks ago, traded into that, had the reaction, okay, broke the lower time frame structure, created new supply here, okay, have now traded into that. So this is one that I personally wouldn't be surprised if we maintained, okay, this area of supply here. Okay, after having broken structure, I mean, you can clearly see the lower time frame structure. Okay, failed to create a higher high, lower low relative to this low. Okay, so the structure to me is telling me, almost immediate downside on this one, maybe a potential run a little bit higher, and then the ultimate sell-off again. Okay, and oftentimes you'll see that NZDUSD and AUDUSD don't exactly do what EU and GU are doing, right? But I'm just simply looking at what each chart is telling me. In this one, I don't really see a need to run higher, okay, unless we truly want to run out this high here and trade deeper into this candlestick here. Okay, but if that happens, okay, then what do we do? Okay, this to us is a greater price, a greater premium for us to get short again because we have our higher time frame objectives, right? So that's the thing, guys, if you have your objective and you know where price is going ultimately, and you take an L here, relax, okay? You're going to get further premium, and you're going to make all that money back and more, okay, when you get it right. All right, no one has a crystal ball here. Okay, but we're making high probability, educated guesses, almost, okay? So the only instance I could see a firm run up is if we wanted to run out this high and trade deeper into this candlestick here. Okay. See, UJ, nothing much. I mean, this thing is just obviously on a massive tear to the upside. You know, we had the liquidity here, ascending liquidity. We had the run lower, break of structure to the upside, higher high. So naturally, we should expect what? A higher low. Higher low. All right, so we want good discount. So that brings us into the 61.878.6 pocket. I'd like to see a retracement down into deep discount and a continuation, just natural structure, naturally following the structure on this one. Now this is somewhat interesting because we didn't trade into our old high here. Okay, we almost tapped into it, right? And so sometimes in the past I have seen where something kind of along the lines of this, right, where we do run it again and then get that move higher. Right, so don't be surprised and think if it runs this low here that it's going short. Okay, it's just I've seen similar behavior in the past. Okay, just approaching this from a logical perspective here, right? But naturally, our preference is going to be for a higher low, a higher high, naturally a higher low for a higher high. Okay, but we have to think of multiple scenarios and be prepared for that to react and adapt. Okay, so this also falls in line with something on, EURJPY. We have perfectly engineered equal highs here, so those will get run out. And so, we want to buy into those equal highs, right? And where do we want to buy? We want to buy in discount, right? So I like the discount. You have this down close here, have the inefficiency. Looks like a 61.71 pocket continuation. Okay. Nice liquidity target objective right here. Okay, so go ahead and mark that off on your chart and let's see what kind of reaction we get from this POI come London session, New York session. Okay. All right, EURGBP. Now this one, the ultimate objective has not changed. If you've been following the series last few months, obviously we have our old gap here, which I expect price to kind of fill up and rebalance. And I believe this move higher is just simply a retracement or run on all of this liquidity here, which our move here accomplished. I guess that was a couple of weeks ago, right? We ran out all of that liquidity. You can even see liquidity engineered here for that run higher. Okay, running out all of these highs. All of these highs, even this high, even these highs over here by just a little bit, but it ran it out. Okay, and so I think the objective has now been achieved to the upside, and now we can look to continue with our higher time frame trend and momentum to the downside. And for me, I'm really liking our 3-hour up close candlestick here. Okay, nice sponsor candle, buy to sell, sharp reaction to the downside, ran this high and ran all those highs we just talked about. All right, so we created this little range here, more liquidity to be run. Okay, we've run the lows of the range. I expect to run higher now into deep premium for a beautiful sell-off, right? And this would just be kind of the initial target. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing ran much, much lower. Much, much lower. Okay. So that's what I am looking at on EURGBP. And I think the euro weakness, the fact that EU is going to run out those weekly equal lows is going to propel this thing to the downside. All right. So go ahead and mark that off as well. All right, next one, not too much, EURCAD. We still have these triple equal lows here that are going to get destroyed ultimately. And so for me, I've been treating kind of retracements as excuses to get premium shorts down into this liquidity. I think if we can really clear this level here, there really shouldn't be much stopping price to just go ahead and wreck this liquidity. Okay, and so I actually sent this out to our VIP group on Thursday, Friday last week, this kind of inefficiency that was created here, okay, this up close candle. I didn't really necessarily like the reaction here. You know, I wanted to see a sharp reaction to the downside, kind of chopped around, but that's okay. You know, floating 70, 60 pips on this one. And like I said, I really want to see this thing just clear, and I don't think there's anything here that's going to stop it once it does. Okay, because ultimately the objective should be to run out the massive amounts of liquidity resting beneath those triple equal lows. Okay, so continue to look for excuses on EUROCAD to sell it because we have a firm higher time frame objective. Very good. All right, and I think the last one I want to look at today is going to be EURAUD, and we talked about these perfectly equal highs, and price decided to obviously destroy that liquidity, snap back down within the range. Okay, so we had our sponsorship, okay, we purged the liquidity, and now I believe we can potentially run lower. And so I'm liking this 1 hour candlestick here at the moment. Now, I don't want to see it trade into it immediately. Okay, I don't want to see that. I would like to see, prefer to see kind of another run lower, and then London, New York trade into this candlestick here, and then get that leg to the downside. Okay, go ahead and target the liquidity here. Okay, but that looks like a nice candlestick. I just want to see a run lower first before I potentially look at selling from this area. Okay, kind of 5220 into 5240, that would be the POI for sells. Okay, but I like this kind of price action. You have lows here. Okay, you have that run lower, the close, trigger the breakout traders, you snag them one more time, and then engulf. That's what we like to see. All right, that's my perspective here on EURAUD. Okay. Great, so I think that kind of covers everything that I'm looking at. I hope I've given you kind of clarity in terms of bias and higher time frame objectives. And I hope you found value in this content. If you'd like to learn more about our mentorship and our education, feel free to head over to our website, www.aerialfxtrading.com, and book a free consultation with one of us to see if you're the right fit for us and what we're trying to achieve for our students. All right, so I hope you have a wonderful week. Safe trading, guys, and we will talk to you next time.